Lesson 1, Advanced Arithmetic. A lot of people are scared of algebra. Maybe they've heard stories about how hard algebra is, or they might have had a friend who was great in arithmetic and basic math, but then flunked out in algebra. And that makes them think that algebra is this really hard subject that's totally different from basic arithmetic. But actually, algebra and arithmetic aren't that different. It turns out algebra is really just a more advanced version of arithmetic. And let me show you what I mean. Here's an arithmetic problem. 31 plus 52. We would normally write the answer to this by just putting an equal sign here, and then we just put 83 on the right. Now here's another arithmetic problem. 28 times 17. This time I'm just going to put a question mark where the answer should go. Why don't you do this one? Figure out what number should go in for the question mark. $476. So 476 is the answer to this one. Here's another arithmetic problem. Go ahead and find the number that should go in for the question mark here. 38. So the answer to this one is 38. The reason I went through those examples is just to show you that arithmetic is really about finding missing numbers. It's kind of a game, and the goal is to find the number that when you put it in for the question mark makes both sides of the problem equal. Now let me show you an algebra problem. This is simple, but it qualifies as algebra. To find the answer, we still have to find the missing number that goes in for the question mark, the number that makes both sides equal. Go ahead, why don't you do it? Now, the missing number here is 64. So the answer to this one's 64. And that's because 27 plus 64 equals 91. That number makes both sides equal. This is another algebra problem. Why don't you find the missing number on this one? Now, the missing number is 41. So 41 is the answer to this problem. Here's the main point. These algebra problems are really not that different from the arithmetic problems that we went through. The algebra problems are still all about finding a missing number. And so that's why I said that algebra is just a more advanced version of arithmetic. But what makes algebra more advanced? Well, arithmetic problems have the missing number on one side by itself. See, in this arithmetic problem, the question mark's all by itself on the right side. And that makes the answer easier to find. All you have to do is add the numbers 31 and 52. But in algebra problems, you probably noticed, the missing number's mixed up with other numbers. See, here's an algebra problem. And notice the question mark is subtracted from 59. And that makes finding the answer tougher. And so that's one reason that algebra is more advanced. Just to make sure you're getting this, let me ask you a quick question. Here's a problem. Is this an algebra problem or an arithmetic problem? Good. It qualifies as algebra because the missing number isn't by itself on one side. A second difference between arithmetic and algebra is that arithmetic problems usually have only one operation. You probably remember that addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, those are actually called operations. But just having one operation keeps arithmetic problems fairly simple. Algebra problems a lot of times have several operations. And that makes finding the missing number tougher again. Here's an example of an algebra problem that actually has a lot of operations. See, here's a multiplication, a division, an addition, a subtraction, and then there's a division over here on the right side. It's pretty obvious that it would be harder to find the missing number here than it would on the average arithmetic problem. But the answer is still going to be the number that will make the two sides equal when you put it in for the question mark. It's harder, but you're still just finding a missing number. In case you're wondering, the answer on this one's actually 8. Now I'm going to ask you another question. Here's a problem. Is this an algebra problem or an arithmetic problem? You got it. It's an algebra problem because it has several operations. Another difference between algebra and arithmetic is that in arithmetic problems, the missing number only appears once. There's just one question mark, in other words. But in algebra problems, the missing number can actually show up many times. Here's an example of an algebra problem that has lots of question marks. There are 3 question marks here. And the correct answer is going to be the number that makes the sides equal when you put it in for all 3 question marks. This answer turns out to be 2. There's one more difference between algebra and arithmetic, which isn't that big of a deal, but it scares some people. Instead of using question marks to stand for missing numbers, algebra actually uses letters, especially the letters X, Y, and Z. At first it might seem a little weird to see letters in a math problem, but the letters just stand for missing numbers. And actually the letter that's used most often is X. Just so you can see what it looks like, here are the last 2 problems I showed, but with X's in place of the question marks. So these are a little closer to what real algebra problems should look like. But the main point is that algebra is just really a more advanced version of arithmetic, because both algebra and arithmetic are about finding missing numbers.